Have you ever found yourself sitting on the floor of a Target aisle, taking a deep breath, looking at your screaming toddler and saying, "I hear that you're upset," while they proceed to just chuck a box of crackers directly at your forehead?
Oh my goodness, yes. Or you're running on 2 hours of sleep and you're trying to gently negotiate with a 3-year-old about putting on their shoes, and suddenly you realize, wait, who is actually in charge here?
Exactly. If you are feeling utterly exhausted by the pressure to be perfectly calm, perfectly validating, and perfectly permissive all the time, you are not alone. Welcome to the Rising Parent Podcast. I'm Tim.
And I'm Edna.
And today we are diving deep into a topic that is everywhere right now. We are explicitly talking about our new episode, Beyond Gentle Parenting, Why Modern Families Are Pivoting to Balanced Discipline.
It's such a needed conversation, Tim, but before we get into the thick of it, we want to remind you that we release new episodes of the Rising Parent Podcast every Monday and Friday, so make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation.
Absolutely. And we also want to quickly mention that we created this podcast to help families, but also to raise funding for our nonprofit mobile food bank, Selfless Outreach. If you want to support the cause and help us feed the underserved, head over to selflessoutreach.org. We'll also have a link to Selfless Outreach right in the show notes for you.
Yes, please check it out. It means the world to us. Now, let's get started.
All right, Edna, let's talk about the elephant in the playroom, gentle parenting. We hear about it constantly in our coaching sessions. Over the last, 5 to 10 years, it became the absolute gold standard for Millennial and Gen Z parents.
Oh, totally. And honestly, the intention behind it is beautiful. After generations of, very authoritarian, because I said so, children should be seen and not heard styles of parenting, this new wave of parents really wanted to break those generational cycles. They wanted to connect with their kids.
Right, and that's a great thing. As childcare professionals, we love seeing parents want to connect and validate feelings. But the pendulum swung really, really far.
It swung so far, it flew right off the clock. What we are seeing now with families we work with, and I'm thinking of a specific couple we recently did some coaching with, let's call them Maya and Dave for privacy reasons, is extreme gentle parenting burnout. Maya came to me during one of our coaching sessions just weeping. She was in those early sleep-deprived months with her second baby, but her real struggle was her 4-year-old. She was so terrified of traumatizing him or invalidating his feelings that she had completely lost her own boundaries.
Yeah, the eggshell parenting.
Exactly. She said, "Edna, I validate his feelings all day long, but he's still hitting me, and I'm just so exhausted." She was drowning because she thought setting a firm boundary meant she was being a bad authoritarian mom.
And that is the biggest misconception we see, right? Gentle parenting, when misunderstood, morphs into permissive parenting. And let me tell you, permissive parenting does not make kids feel safe. It actually spikes their anxiety.
Wait, break that down for the listeners, Tim, because I think that's a huge light bulb moment for a lot of parents. Why does a lack of boundaries make kids anxious?
Okay, think about it like this. Imagine you are driving over a very high, very narrow bridge in the dark. If that bridge has no guardrails, how are you going to drive?
Oh, I'm gripping the steering wheel. I'm driving like 2 miles an hour, sweating.
Right, you're terrified. But if that same bridge has strong, sturdy concrete guardrails, you feel safe. You can drive normally. Children are exactly the same. When they test boundaries, they aren't doing it to be malicious. They are essentially bumping up against the edge of the bridge, checking to see, hey, are these guardrails strong enough to hold me? Are my parents strong enough to keep me safe when my emotions are completely out of control?
Wow, yes.
If a toddler has a massive meltdown and the parent just hovers nervously, negotiating, pleading, letting the child dictate the situation, the child subconsciously thinks, "Oh man, my parent can't even handle my behavior. Who is steering the ship? We're going to crash."
And that leads right into why modern families are pivoting to what we call balanced discipline or authoritative parenting, which is high warmth, high connection, but also high boundaries.
Yes, and it's a learned skill. Nobody's born knowing how to do this. I remember a situation at the daycare back in the day. We had this incredibly bright little girl in the 3-year-old room. Let's call her Chloe for privacy reasons. Chloe was a biter. Whenever she got frustrated, she'd bite.
Oh, the biting phase. That is always so stressful for parents.
So stressful. And Chloe's parents were deeply committed to gentle parenting. They told us in a meeting, and I'm keeping them anonymous for privacy reasons, that when she bit them at home, they would get down on her level and say, "Oh, Chloe, your teeth are for eating food. I see you're frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated." But they wouldn't actually physically stop her from doing it again. They'd just keep talking.
Right, the endless narrating.
Exactly. So at the daycare, when she tried to bite another child, we had to implement a balanced boundary. We didn't yell, we didn't shame her or put her in a dark corner, but we did immediately insert a physical boundary, a hand gently but firmly blocking her mouth, and a very clear, authoritative statement, "I will not let you bite. Biting hurts." And then we moved her body away.
That is such a critical distinction. The boundary is an action, not just a script.
Yes, "I will not let you" is a boundary. "Please don't do that, sweetie. I see you're upset" is a request. Kids don't need requests in a moment of dysregulation. They need you to be the confident leader.
I love that, the confident leader. And a lot of the parents I work with in the early years, when you were just running on fumes, maybe you haven't slept a full night in 6 months, finding that confident leader voice feels impossible. It's so much easier to just cave.
Oh, absolutely. When you're exhausted, survival mode kicks in.
Totally. I was working with a dad in one of our coaching sessions. Let's call him Mark for privacy reasons. Mark was dealing with a 2.5-year-old who would refuse to get in the car seat. And Mark was doing the classic gentle parenting script. "I hear you don't want to get in your seat. I know it's hard. Do you want to bring the blue car or the red car?" And his son was just screaming, arching his back, totally ignoring the choices.
The dreaded back arch. It's like they turn into a rigid plank of wood.
Exactly, a screaming plank of wood. And Mark was just standing in the grocery store parking lot for 20 minutes, sweating, feeling like a failure, because the internet told him that if he just validated the feelings enough, the kid would happily get in the seat.
Which is wild, right? Toddlers don't care about your logic when their amygdala is firing off like a fire alarm.
Right, so I told Mark, and again, keeping his identity safe for privacy reasons, I said, "Mark, your job is to keep him safe. Standing in a busy parking lot for 20 minutes is not safe. It is okay to physically pick him up, validate the feeling, and enforce the boundary simultaneously."
How did you script that out for him? Because I know parents love having those specific de-escalation scripts when "I hear you" just isn't cutting it.
I told him to say this: "You are so mad we have to leave. I am going to help your body into the car seat so we can go home safely. And then you do it. You don't wait for permission. You don't ask, 'Is that okay?' You gently but confidently buckle them in while they are mad."
Yeah, you hold the boundary while allowing the feeling.
Exactly. Balanced discipline means we don't punish the feeling. We don't say, "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." We say, "You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to be furious, but we are still getting in the car seat."
That right there is the magic of the pivot. That's the balance. I had a family we worked with in coaching. We'll call them the Smiths for privacy reasons. They came to me because their 8-year-old was having major communication breakdowns and behavioral outbursts at home. He would scream and throw things when it was time to turn off the iPad.
Oh, screen time transitions, always a massive trigger.
Huge trigger. And the parents, the Smiths, they were trying so hard to be respectful. They were saying things like, "Okay, buddy, I know you love your game, but it's time to turn it off, okay?"
Adding the okay at the end.
Yes, Adding okay makes it a question. It hands all the power to an 8-year-old who doesn't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So when he inevitably screamed no, they would just repeat the script over and over until eventually the parents would snap, yell at him, snatch the iPad, and then feel immense guilt and apologize profusely.
Oh, the guilt cycle. It's so painful. You try to be gentle, you get pushed to your absolute limit, you explode into authoritarianism, and then you shame yourself and swing right back to permissive.
Exactly, Edna. It's a vicious cycle. So we worked on a balanced de-escalation script. No questions, confident directives. I taught them to say, screen time is over in 2 minutes. You can hand the iPad to me or I will take it from your hands. What is your choice?
Oh, I love that. You give the choice, but the boundary is happening regardless.
Exactly. The boundary is non-negotiable. The iPad is turning off. The autonomy is in how it happens. And guess what? The first time they tried it, he screamed and refused. So the dad calmly walked over, said, I see you're having a hard time turning it off. I will help you. And he took the iPad. He didn't yell, he didn't lecture, he just executed the boundary.
And how did the son react?
Well, he threw a fit.
Of course he did.
Of course, because he was used to them caving. But they held the line, they stayed calm, and within a week, just 1 week of consistent, balanced boundaries, the epic meltdown stopped. He realized the guardrails were sturdy, the iPad was going away no matter how much he screamed, but his parents still loved him through the tantrum.
That is such a beautiful example. And you know, Tim, something you touched on there really resonates with a lot of the families I talk to. Why is it so hard for us as parents to hold that line? Why do we freeze or why do we eventually explode?
Generational cycles. It all comes back to our own stuff.
Yes, managing our own emotional triggers. It is the hardest part of parenting, period.
Oh, absolutely. The behavior of the child is only half the battle. The other half is what's happening inside the parent's nervous system.
I remember a mom we worked with for some intensive coaching. I'll call her Jessica for privacy reasons. Jessica was deeply triggered by her daughter's crying. Anytime her toddler would cry, whether it was because she got the wrong color cup or because it was bedtime, Jessica would instantly start sweating, her heart would race, and she would do anything to stop the crying.
Which usually meant giving in to the toddler's demands.
Right. And when we dug into it during our coaching sessions, keeping the details vague for privacy reasons, of course, we realized that Jessica was raised in a home where expressing negative emotion was completely unacceptable. If she cried as a kid, she was punished or sent to her room alone.
So her nervous system learned that crying equals danger.
Exactly. So when her toddler cried, Jessica's adult brain knew it was just about a blue cup, but her nervous system thought, danger, we are in danger, fix it immediately.
Wow, that is so common. We see that all the time. Our kids' big emotions act as a mirror to the parts of ourselves that weren't allowed to be expressed when we were little.
It's so true. And what happens is, in this modern push for gentle parenting, a lot of parents who have these unhealed triggers try to use the scripts. I see you're upset, but their tone of voice, their facial expressions, their body language, it's completely frantic.
Yes, kids are so smart. They don't just listen to the words, they feel the energy. If you were saying, I am the confident leader, but your eyes are wide with panic and your voice is shaking, the child isn't going to feel safe.
So how do we break that cycle? How do we manage our own triggers so we can actually be the confident leader?
Well, it starts with self-regulation. Before you can regulate a screaming toddler, you have to regulate yourself. And that sounds cliché, like take a deep breath, but physiologically it is a requirement.
It really is. I always tell my clients, you have to find your anchor. When I had a little one at the daycare, let's call him Leo for privacy reasons, who was just having an epic throw himself on the floor meltdown, I would literally feel my own shoulders creeping up to my ears. My heart rate would spike.
We've all been there.
So before I even spoke to him, I would do a heavy sigh, just a loud exhale. I'd drop my shoulders, I'd put my hand on my chest, physically reminding my own body, this is not an emergency. He is just 3. You are safe.
That pause, that 3-second gap between the child's trigger and your response is where all the magic happens in parenting.
Yes, in that pause, you stop being a reactive victim of the tantrum and you step into the role of the parent. Going back to Jessica, the mom I mentioned earlier, keeping her anonymous for privacy reasons, we actually practiced a mantra for her to use in that pause.
Oh, I love mantras. What was it?
When her daughter started crying over a boundary, Jessica would silently say to herself, "Her sadness is not my emergency. I am a safe place to land."
Her sadness is not my emergency. That is powerful.
Right? It completely shifted her dynamic because gentle parenting isn't about making sure your child never cries. It's about letting them cry while holding the boundary without making their feelings your emotional burden.
That's balanced discipline in a nutshell. It's moving away from this idea that a successful day of parenting means your kid was happy 100% of the time.
Exactly. A successful day means you stayed steady, you held your family's values, and you kept everyone safe even if your kid was mad about it.
There's another layer to this that I see a lot when we work with families, particularly with older kids like school-age children.
Yeah, let's talk about the older kids, because it's not just toddlers throwing crackers.
Right. The dynamic shifts, but the principle is the same. I worked with a family. We'll call them the Harrisons for privacy reasons. They had a 10-year-old daughter who was incredibly smart, very verbal, but would talk back and blatantly disrespect her parents when they asked her to do her chores.
The eye rolls, the attitude.
Oh, the Olympic-level eye rolls. And the parents were deep into the gentle parenting philosophy. So when she would say something mean like, "You're the worst parents ever, I'm not cleaning up," they would sit down and want to have a 30-minute dialogue about her big feelings.
Oh boy, processing every single comment.
Yes, processing everything. And it was exhausting them. And quite frankly, it was exhausting her daughter. She didn't want to process her feelings for 30 minutes. She just wanted to get out of emptying the dishwasher.
Right. Sometimes kids are just kids. Not every negative behavior is a cry for deep emotional healing. Sometimes it's just, I don't want to do my chores.
Exactly. And that's where the backlash against permissive, gentle parenting is coming from. Modern parents are exhausted from overcomplicating discipline. So, with the Harrisons, again, a pseudonym for privacy reasons, we pivoted to balanced discipline.
What did that look like for a 10-year-old?
I told them you can validate the feeling in one sentence and hold the boundary in the next, and then walk away. Stop negotiating.
Walk away. The power of disengaging.
Yes, the script we gave them was, "I hear that you are annoyed about your chores, but speaking to us disrespectfully is not acceptable. The Wi-Fi password will change in an hour and you will get the new password after the dishwasher is empty. And then turn on your heel and leave the room."
Wow. Clear, concise, and holding the boundary.
And no surprise, the daughter flipped out the first time. She followed her mom around the house trying to pull her into an argument. But her mom, utilizing the tools from our coaching sessions, just calmly said, "I'm not arguing about this. Let me know when the dishwasher is empty."
And I bet the dishwasher got emptied.
It got emptied in 45 minutes, just before the Wi-Fi cut out.
That is brilliant. It respects the child's autonomy to choose, but the boundary is rock solid, and you didn't have to yell or shame her to get it done.
Precisely. Balanced parenting means you don't have to be a dictator, but you don't have to be a doormat either. You can stand firmly in the middle.
And that middle ground, that's where the confidence comes from. When we started the Rising Parent podcast, our whole goal was to help parents move from a place of constant questioning to a place of confidence, grace, and success. You can't be confident if you are terrified of your child's reactions.
No, you can't. And that's why I want to circle back to something you said earlier, Edna, about the early sleep-deprived months, because I know that's an area where you shine in our coaching work. When parents are so utterly exhausted, how do they even begin to find the energy to hold a firm boundary?
It's a great question, Tim. And honestly, it starts with giving yourself immense grace. When you are operating on a severe sleep deficit, your brain's executive functioning is practically offline.
It really is.
So, I always tell parents in those early stages, pick your battles. You do not have to hold a firm boundary on absolutely everything right now. If your toddler wants to wear mismatched socks and the idea of fighting about it makes you want to cry, let it go. That's not a safety issue.
Right. Save your energy for the big stuff.
Exactly. Focus your balanced discipline on safety and core values. Hitting, firm boundary. Running in the street, firm boundary. Getting into the car seat, firm boundary. But eating a waffle instead of eggs for dinner? Maybe give yourself a pass today.
I love that. It's realistic. We aren't looking for perfection. We're looking for consistency in the things that matter most.
And building on that, when you do have to set a boundary when you're exhausted, lean heavily on action rather than words. We talk so much to our kids. We over-explain.
We really do. We give them paragraph-long explanations for why they can't have a cookie at 8 a.m.
Yes. Well, honey, cookies have sugar, and sugar doesn't fuel our growing bodies, and we need to eat protein first. By the time you're done, the kid is zoned out and just screams louder.
Absolutely.
Yes. Instead, use 10 words or less. Cookies are not for breakfast. We are having toast. Done. Don't engage in the debate. The more you talk, the more exhausted you get, and the more likely you are to eventually cave.
Less words, more action. That is a huge takeaway for anyone listening who feels that gentle parenting burnout.
Yeah, and speaking of takeaways, Tim, let's wrap this up for the parents listening. If they are walking away from this episode with just a few core concepts about moving from permissive, gentle parenting to balanced discipline, what are the key takeaways?
All right, let's break it down. Key takeaway number 1. Feelings are valid, but behaviors are not universally acceptable. You can have unconditional love for your child while simultaneously having strict boundaries around aggressive or unsafe behaviors.
Spot on. Key takeaway number 2, boundaries create safety. Remember Tim's bridge analogy? Kids aren't trying to make your life miserable when they push back. They are looking for sturdy guardrails to know that you are strong enough to keep them safe. A lack of boundaries actually increases childhood anxiety.
Absolutely. Key takeaway number 3, move from passive scripts to active boundaries. If "I hear you" isn't working, you need to transition into a confident directive. Stop asking questions like, "Okay?" and start stating what is going to happen. Use physical boundaries to keep everyone safe when necessary.
Yes. And finally, key takeaway number 4, break the cycle by managing your own triggers first. Your child's negative emotion is not an emergency you have to immediately fix. Take that 3-second pause, regulate your own nervous system, and remember that you are the confident leader in your home.
Those are incredible takeaways. And you know, Edna, doing this work with families over the past 2 decades has shown us time and time again that when parents implement these balanced strategies, the entire atmosphere of the home shifts. The tension drops, the kids relax, the parents can finally breathe.
It truly is transformative. It's not an overnight fix. It takes practice, but it is so worth the effort.
It really is. Well, we have covered so much ground today. Thank you to everyone who joined us for this conversation on why modern families are pivoting to balanced discipline.
If you found value in today's episode, we have a huge favor to ask. Please make sure you subscribe to the Rising Parent podcast on whatever platform you are listening on and leave us a 5-star review. It really helps other parents find the show.
And as a quick reminder, we release new episodes of the Rising Parent podcast every single Monday and Friday. So check back in a few days for our next topic.
Yes. And lastly, but most importantly, we want to remind you that we created this podcast not just to help families like yours thrive, but also to raise funding for our nonprofit mobile food bank, Selfless Outreach.
That's right. If you appreciated this episode and want to help us make a tangible difference, please consider donating to Selfless Outreach. You can go to selflessoutreach.org and hit the donate button. Every single donation helps us serve the underserved in our communities.
We've made it super easy for you. There's a direct link to Selfless Outreach right in the show notes. Please click over and support Selfless Outreach if you can.
Well, until next time, keep giving yourself grace, keep holding those boundaries, and remember, you are exactly the parent your child needs.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.